Let's discuss really quick the potential causation for the double feed malfunction. We'll put it into 4 different categories. It could be something the shooter induced, it could be a gun related problem, it could be the magazine has an issue, or it could be ammunition that is causing it. Let's start with things that the operator could potentially do to induce a double feed. We have previously discussed that the importance of having a proper grip. If we have a loosey-goosey grip and that energy is not being trapped here in the web of the hand, then when the gun recoils, that energy is being kind of bled off right here, and it may not have enough oomph, enough energy transferred to the slide for it to fully cycle as it's designed to. Remember that handguns are engineered to specific operating tolerances. The inertia that has to be overcome for that slide to fully cycle, for the next round to feed, all that jazz. If we have a loosey-goosey grip, we are interfering with the harmonics. Also, if we have very poor recoil management and there's undue flippage of the nose of the gun during recoil, then as it cycles, there is a potential not only for energy to be bled off and it not to fully cycle as it should. Remember that cycle of operation, the things here that could be causing the double feed would be the failure of the round or casing in the chamber to extract, to eject, and then to properly feed the next round into the chamber. If we don't have a good solid grip or our fundamentals are not well grounded, then those things could potentially cause the double feed. I would put this in the lower end of the potential category of causation, but it's something to consider, especially if the gun only double feeds when certain individuals are shooting it. If anybody else fires it and there's no issue, then look at an operator-induced causation. So somewhere between operator level causes and gun-related causes, we'll throw in a maintenance issue. If the chamber of your gun is super filthy, it may cause extra resistance when that spent casing is trying to extract, and especially in conjunction with a wore-out extractor or extractor spring. So make sure you're doing regular maintenance on your gun. The last thing we'll put into that bucket of things that the operator could potentially do to induce the malfunction would be misdiagnosing a different type of malfunction. For example, this appears to be a traditional stovepipe. Remember, the stovepipe is technically speaking a failure to eject malfunction. When that casing fails to eject and clear out of that ejection port, more often than not, it also precludes the next live round from feeding out of the magazine and going into the chamber, but not always. Rarely, but it does happen, that next live round will load into the chamber, the spent casing will do some kind of funky acrobatics and then land back into the action as the slide is slamming forward. Hence, if we apply the slap rack OMG, I just caused a double feed. I don't want you to process, or I don't want you to investigate what is going on when you think it's a stovepipe or a different type of drill. Just be ready for the challenge that if life throws you a double feed somewhere in the mix, just fix it. Super simple. All right, let's move on to things that could be wrong with the gun that could cause the double feed. I would offer up that the leading cause of a double feed would be a failure to extract. If the extractor, remember the extractor is this little doohickey right here, it articulates back and forth like that, and its job, its sole purpose in life is to pull things out of the chamber that are in the chamber. When the slide closes and goes fully into battery, that claw latches onto the lip of the casing or the round that's in the chamber, and then when it opens, it flings that thing out. More correctly, it grabs the lip and it extracts it out, and then a separate doohickey that little metal bar that's poking up right there, that is the ejector. That's what hits the bottom left corner in most guns of that case that is extracting, and it flings it out of the gun, which makes room for the next round to feed in. So if your extractor is damaged or broken, or it's gummed up, the springs are not working and it's not popping in and out like it should, if when the slide goes forward it does not latch onto the lip of that case, or if, God forbid, that little lip right there is actually broken or chipped, then it won't be able to grab the rim of the case to extract it out of the chamber. Note that the extractor here is stuck in the outer position, outer range of motion, and you see that there's a piece of brass inside the chamber. When the slide closes into battery, that extractor claw is not falling into the notch as it should to pull it out. All that to say that the leading cause of it failing to extract in the first place would be that extractor has some kind of an issue. Another problem that could be gun related would be the recoil spring itself. Remember that handguns are engineered to work in exact tolerances, so the energies at play are fine-tuned by the engineers who designed them that way. If we take and we start tinkering with that harmonics or symbiosis by replacing things like the recoil spring so that we get a softer recoil impulse, or that we can shoot very weakly loaded ammunition, for example, for competition, and we start tinkering with the spring, then two things could happen. One, if the spring is overpowered for the ammunition that you're shooting, then you may get too soft of a recoil impulse and it may not fully extract that casing. I could envision this being more likely a culprit for the failure to extract and eject, resulting in a stovepipe or something like that. I would not think that an overpowered spring for underpowered ammunition, it would not come back far enough to load that next round. If, however, the spring is underpowered and you are shooting full strength ammunition or hot loads plus P, higher pressure ammunition, then I can see that having such an impact as the slide comes to its full range of motion and hits that stop at the end, to have so much oomph that potentially it would cause the next round that's in the magazine to pop up prematurely and then get hung up on the feed ramp. So it would load one as it should, and then the next one pops up because of the extra jarring of the gun, and then it sends a second round trying to go into feed into the chamber as well, gumming up the works. So you have one in the chamber, one on the feed ramp, all bound up. So those are potential issues with the gun itself. All right, so we've talked about operator level inducement, we've talked about gun related issues. Now let's talk about what could be wrong with the magazine that could potentially cause a double feed. Regarding potential problems with the magazine that could result in a double feed, remember that the lips of the magazine are designed so that they kind of pinch that top round so that it stays in place until the slide comes forward to cycle and push that next round into the chamber. If those magazine lips are bent, damaged, spread out a little bit more than they should be according to their tolerances, and especially in conjunction with that underpowered recoil spring, remember you have a lot more energy hitting that full stop when the slide comes to its full range of motion, that jarring could potentially cause that next round in the magazine to pop out, and then as the slide closes, now we have something in the chamber and we have something gumming up the works, trying to get up the feed ramp to feed. Other issues with the magazine, if you have the magazine spring has been wore out, then it may cause the follower to kind of get a little bit wonky. I'm less of the mindset that it will be a spring related issue. More likely than not, it would be the lips of the magazine. If you have a spare magazine and you've had multiple iterations of it coming to a double feed condition, then you may want to just ditch that magazine and put your spare in. It might be a magazine-induced cause for that malfunction. If you narrow it down to a single magazine that is causing your double feed malfunctions, then I would say you have three options available to you. One, mark it so that you can use that for your malfunction drill practice. That's kind of a pretty cool training aid. Two, disassemble it, throw away the body of it, and keep the follower, the spring, and the base plate for your spare parts bin. So if you have to refurbish another magazine later on, you have parts in the bin. Or take a hammer to the booger and then throw it in the trash. What you do not want to do is allow that magazine that's causing a malfunction to get back into the rotation of your self-defense carry. So those are the things magazine related. Lastly, let's discuss ammunition related causes. If you're shooting ammunition that is not in sync with your recoil spring strength, then it could be causing an issue. If you're shooting normal ammunition at normal pressures using a very, very weak spring, then it may have too much of an impact, that energy when it hits the full range of motion, as we've already discussed. Unless you're a competition shooter, I would recommend not tinkering with the design that your gun came out of the box. There's very few modifications that I actually would propose to you. Changing the sights out would be a good one. If your gun didn't come with glow-in-the-dark night sights, those tritium inserts, that would be something I would encourage you to look at. But as far as most of the internal machinations of the gun, it's best if we leave it as is. That is not some internet myth of OMG, you're going to get prosecuted to the fullest extent of your liberal prosecutor because you change something, because you change the recoil spring in your gun. That's because I want to make sure that your gun is functioning as it should be whenever, God forbid, you have to use it in defense of yourself or loved ones. So take it for what it's worth. I would encourage you not to tinker with the innards of your gun. Let it be. All right, let's move on.